So on the Thames, the worst thing probably is the gutter on both the panel and the minibus, and it's awkward because the moisture gets up inside from the inside and also the water from downside, and it's quite a complicated repair, especially if you want to keep your headlining in. And it's a nice headlining. Luckily my one's alright, but if you're going for a Thames, that's definitely one area you want to check along the gutter, inside and out. Let's go and have a look at the other side. Pardon the detritus on the top. This is part of the thing of all the stuff I've collected. So as you can see, it says with bare knuckles. That's not bad. So now let's work our way down. So now on a early 57 or some of the early vans, the one way to tell the difference is the badge at the back. So on an early one like this one, it flips up to reveal the spare wheel bracket. On a later one, you've got a cast item with a hole already in it. Now on the rear quarter panels, it's in these bits here, they go in here, and the reason being is because when we look at here, this is where the grot comes in. So it gets quite complicated here because the quarter panel has two holes that bolts through tubes that way, but you've also got two holes for the bolts for the lower hinge bracket there. And this is where it gets really tricky, both on vans and on minibuses. So you end up with something that looks like that inside, and it's quite complicated really. So if you're buying a minibus or a van, that's one place to check for certain. And even if you've got one, it's certainly something that you want to put plenty of cavity wax in and keep checking it, washing it out, making sure there's no debris building up inside. We go to the lower valance. Again, this is another rusty area because it's another funny panel. We'll go underneath and have a look underneath. So well, I've just bombed it just to try and protect it. You've got this lovely double skin area there where the water gets in there as well, and then it just blows it all out. And of course Ford, when they made the replacement panel, it's only this top little bit up here, these brackets here, which if you was going to replace it, you wouldn't do it like that anyway. Here's the spare wheel bracket located, or the lowering mechanism. They need plenty of grease and oil because they will seize up as well because they attract a lot of dirt. On the Thames, we've got the usual rear axle setup with lever arm suspension as per Mark II. That's one thing Fords did try to use, was a lot of Mark II components on this. If I show you on this one we've got off the vehicle, oops, now on a Mark II Zephyr there is actually an oil seal in here which is slightly tapered, and the only way to fit an oil seal is to take the diff out, slide the half shifts out, and you've got to push the seal in and then use a bit of threaded rod or something to pull the new one in. Also on the Thames there is no provision for the oil seal, and there's not a way really of putting one in either. And what Fords did do is they put a spray shield on the other side of the back plate, which has a nice little drip tray as it were, so any oil that does come out will drip through onto the back plate, and if it's a lot it will probably get on your brake shoes, so it wasn't a good idea. Sometimes they can leak a bit, but there's no way really of getting around that. There's no way of machining the axle to put in an oil seal really. That was a nice Ford special, I suppose. Said he was going to work my way down from the roof. I just started at the bottom, didn't I? So the window frames are a metal frame sat on a rubber and a glass, and it sits in the aperture here, and what can happen is the water just sits in there and then it rusts through there, so you have problems on the drip rail, you have problems on the window channels, and also this belt line here. So what happens is then the water then goes down onto the belt line, so then you end up with a nice line across there. It starts rotting out as well. The window frames are held in, believe it or not, with the rubber, but also you'll find some self-tappers in the corners of the frames, and I don't know how Ford's got them in there, but they're quite a bugger to get out, and you're not going to get the frames out without damaging that area if you try and pull them out, because even after 50 years they still grip. So having shown you the outer edge of the hinge, they also can go on the inside as well, down through here. Again, it's quite complicated because of the bolts for the hinge, the two cross tubes for that. It's a more of an exploded view, if you like, of what you've got to deal with. You've got the two cross tubes here for these bolts, and also the tubes here for the mounts for the quarter panel that goes on the back. I think really I'd like to replace that box section just to give it a bit more of a chance, and spray plenty of goo in there. Again, this one's not too bad. Typical setup as per Mark II, with shackles. All the parts are available for that, bushes wise. Mine seems to be deluxe trim, so it's got chrome light bezels, and on the indicators as well. Show you the window frames. So this is what you get. So you've got the outer frame cassette, if you like, with a metal channel with some fur flex in, as it were, and the glass just sits in that. So what happens is the moisture just comes down and just rots this all away. So if you have got one, you need to look after it, put plenty of wax oil. It's probably worth taking the windows out and putting some wax oil in there, something like that, or even some oil maybe. And if you ever come across some window frames, it's worth getting them, even if it's old ones that you can section the tops off and use them as repairs. I'm lucky I've got one for this one. I've got a side one from the other one, but I'm having to use some spare sections that I've got to repair my rear one, as that shot as well. Now I have already had the floor out, so it's only sat in there temporarily, but it's a wooden plywood floor which sits on the cross members, which look like that. Another area, especially on campers or buses, is where the battery tray sits. So obviously you get battery acid and it becomes very frilly like that. It's a very, very thin skin indeed. So plenty of repairs to be made there. Again, these sections are not available. You're going to have to handball them. Get someone to fabricate them, or if you can't do it yourself. Mine had this blue vinyl on the floor, which I have seen in Ford Anglias and stuff, so it's of the time. But she's not that bad elsewhere, to be honest. And also the seats. Finding the trim, I'm lucky that the trim's the right colour, especially for this one. Although the foam needs replacing in the backrests. But I'm lucky I've got a full set and they're pretty okay. If you're wondering what the black tarpaulin doing, it's just protecting the headlining. because luckily I won't have to take mine out for repairs, so I'm trying to sort of keep that in place and keep it clean. On the minibus you've got this drop down door or footstep which comes out when you open this door and this mechanism through here, which again is another grot spot. It's not too bad. I mean, I'm painting the underside, but I've got to make a repair there. Small one there. That one might be alright actually. That one's a bit frilly there. Again, one thing you do need to do is make sure you oil your hinges, because you'll end up with a sheared hinge pin and then that becomes a problem. So luckily mine's alright up in here. As you can see, that's what happens to your window frames. And these are the rubbers. The rubbers were available from the club. Sadly the club's in a bit of a position at the moment, which is a bit of a shame. But because there's only a few of us that are into these, it's a small minority club. So the quarter panels on a bus and a panel van fit here. There's another little small panel goes in here, and another small one here. That one there and that one there are quite hard to find. Let's talk about doors. Again, all your hinges. Now, one grot spot is here, where mine's gone, and here. That is because of the floor pan. Oh yeah, by the way, if you're looking for your chassis plate in your trim plate, it's down here. Now, as you can see, you've got a floor with this rubber seal here, but basically it's a knuckle joint like that. It goes into the front valance and the front panel. So what happens is, obviously you're sat there with your wet feet and the water comes off and it goes straight down into there and then sits there and rots it out. Again, mine's not too bad. Most of my floor pan there. I have got a small repair to make here on this side. Not too bad. There's a little bit of a hole on that corner, just under there. Where is he? There. Hole. Now, on the Thames, Ford's used an independent front suspension setup. So you've got wishbones top and a lower wishbone, a sway bar, or anti-roll bar at the back. The springs on these are extremely strong, so if you're taking them out you have to take the damper out first and then use some threaded contraption to keep their tension when you're taking it apart, because they are extremely strong. Look at the thickness and wire gauge of those springs. They're not like car springs, they are Thames springs, and they're pretty pokey. Seat runners, these also can suffer from, or the bolts can suffer from corrosion and might not come undone easily. And also in corners like here, Ford decided to use things called groove nuts, which were aluminium or alloy based, with a steel nut or bolt going into. So if they've been on it for 15 years, they normally end up tearing the steel away before they come apart, even if you use heat. And this is where the engine sits in here. Now they've probably got his engine mounts. I'm going to try and get some made. They didn't use Mark II mounts or a Mark II chassis for some reason, or a cost member. I don't know why they didn't do that. Now the front hinges, very difficult to get off, especially low ones, because what happens is all the crud ends up in a hole behind here. Let's see down in there. Nope, where are we? Basically it's in there, down in there. So the bottom one's going to be a pain to come out. Needs a bit of heat. Once again, make sure your door edges are all okay. I think a drop of wax or won't cause. Once you've done them and cleaned them up, That looks a bit iffy there. Once you've painted them and done the bits to them, just make sure you give them a little bit of a coating of wax, or it just helps. So like I say, they go down here on the corners. My front valance isn't too bad. Again on this corner, it's going to go from the hole from the inside. And I've got a nice repair to do there, both inside and out. These panels are available from Express Panels. You can get the in footstep, as it were. You can get the outer bit through here and up over here. You can get floor pans. Mine's like okay. And you can get the rear quarter panels as well, which are quite good. Here's the side that I haven't done. There's years and years of various kinds of dust. So, yeah, as I was saying before, I don't really know why Ford didn't modify a Mark II. I suppose it's kind of Mark II-ish, but use Mark II engine mounts. I don't know why I didn't do that. On early ones, you do have slight different variations to do with the steering components. So you have these stud and bushes, which are metal studs with a rubber bushing, silent block, I suppose they call it, which will perish. You can change them for later ones, but you have to have the whole sort of kit. So the steering comes down through the steering box on here, and these are your relay arms in here. So these need to be greased. They're an item which need to be serviced, because they do wear extremely bad here because they're prone to water ingress from the front. These are where your brake and clutch master cylinders are situated. Brake on this side and clutch on the other. That's right anyway. Massive air horns. Sorry, not air horns, massive horns on these. They're not like Mark II ones, they're bigger I think. Maybe it's a truck horn because it's commercial. Sorry, I'm just pivoting round, so here you are, isn't it? End on view of. Here's the end of your brake. Here's your clutch. That's the cylinder which is in there, which is another thing. I've also got another item up in here, another pivot that needs greasing in there. There's lots of linkages being sort of forward control that all need greasing and servicing. Like I say, the best thing to do is to use the bloody thing. Here's a close up, better look at the suspension. So you've got your tie rollers or track rollers coming through there on the link bar, and there's the big cool spring coil there. So another look at the grot up in here. A nice repair to do there. And this is the engine bay, looks like. So you've got the object to the front suspension. The other thing as well is that you've got the upper and lower ball joints. They have to be separated with a device which goes in between and pushes against each other, and they require a bit of a tap as well to get them out. So that'll be another bit of fun, because although I've got new turrets sprayed, powder coat, and lower arms sprayed and powder coat ready to go on, and springs, the only thing I haven't done is the spindles, because obviously I need the ones that are on here, and getting those off will be interesting, I think. I'm still procrastinating over taking that bloody thing out there. But hey, the other thing as well, inside the engine bay, you've got this. So just there is the forward control linkage pivot. There's one on the inside as well. On the other side I'll show you in a minute. Again, it's another point that needs to be greased, as they do where obviously all the linkages on Mark, it's the same as on Mark 2s. Just trying to show you where the other one is. Where's he gone? There's another one there. Oh, there he is. Yeah. These are the same bushes and rubbers as on Mark II Zephyrs and Zodiacs. So you can get them, although even the Mark II clubs are getting a bit hard to get bits from nowadays. And they will wear out. So this is looking on this side backwards. There's no door, no footstep comes down. So this is the next bit I've got to do, is this side under here. Clean that up, get rid of all of it. Got to take off the anti-roll bar at the back. Now you can see, come out, where are they? Focus, focus. That's it, right. So you can see the thread on there. That's nice. Should we have a look at the one on the other side? Oh, it's not too bad actually. But yes, it's got some level of corrosion on it. Looking forward to this one's alright this side. This one looks like it's seen better days. I have to make a new strap. On the inside you've got the, I suppose you call it a trunnion inside. Again, that's set up so you don't really want to be disturbing that, because that will also probably affect the position of the shims that are in here. So I'm going to probably leave those in situ, and just when I take the arms off, just replace the bushes and clean them up. I'm not going to take them off because that's as they're set up. View looking forward, that's where your radiator will be. Now it said that the Thames had a separate chassis. On a Thames, on a vans anyway, or on a minibuses, you won't separate the chassis, not here. They're also attached at the rear as well, believe it or not, which you probably could cut the welds off. I've just shown you the typical setup. I've got to change it. There's a lump taken out of there, so I'm going to change that off. Most of the brake components are available because they're the same as Mark II, most of them. Don't buy from Jumble Master, whatever you do, because they don't last very long. Things like wheel cylinders, get them from people that you know are good dealers. Some people like Power Track or Kev Zodiac Motor Services. The cheap ones are exactly what you're paying for. They will not last long, especially you're the kind of person that leaves your vehicle in a garage. You'll probably come back and find you've got no pedal because they leak. Like I was saying, on the early ones there was support which they later bolted in here to support this brake cable, because they used to bend like mine has done a little bit. So a few little weird things between early and later vans. Obviously you had the 4-speed on a much later van. On the early ones you had 3 speeds. How do I lock that? Excuse me. Yeah. So this is the driver's side, the business side. So the brake master sits up in here. Again, that's another component which suffers from corrosion, and they're quite hard to find. You could probably make something up if you wanted to, if you got stuck, but as an original item to find, they're quite hard to find. Here's the heater box. some of these were optional. I like the windscreen washer that someone employed on here using a syringe. It's a doctor. And also had some kind of charging system which I've disconnected. I don't really know quite how that all worked. There's supposed to be wiring on these. So see how we get on with that. These rubbers are non-existent to find. I'm probably not going to take those off, to be honest. Obviously replace this bit here, a bit of flap seal, but if I'm going to paint it, I think I'm going to probably leave that area there, I think, because I don't think you're going to find a rubber like that. If anyone does, let me know. Unusual door catches on these as well. They're not like Mark II or anything else. Again, it's all about maintenance. Obviously when I go inside, take these panels off, I'm going to grease and oil everything up inside there. This door bottom's okay. Oh, it's a little bit grotty in here, I didn't spot that. So I'm going to clean that up before that breaks out. So, there you have it. Just going to explain to you a bit about the panels on these. So, on early vans, you had, this is the same panel, you had a stud which come up through the floor or through the side member and were bolted on through here. Now on early vans you've got studs, on later panels you've got bolts or nuts, captive nuts on them. So when you're buying panels you will find possibly some difference between studded and captive nuts. And we'll talk about the edges of panels. So this is the original one off of mine and it's just starting to go down the edge. Shall we have a look why? All the panels have got this folded return. That's all it is just a piece of skin folded over the edge like on a door. The trouble is on Thames vans, it just gets in there, all the water and moisture, so you've got to make sure you do something there to stop it getting in. So you want to put some kind of wax or wax oil or something like that. Also on the edges of the panels, on the ones with the bolt on ones, let's see if we can find one. Where did I put it? Oh, over here. So this is one that I've prepared. So this is the edge down here, which if I turn them over, this is where your panel bolts on. A lot of the side panels are like this. They've got this folded over return which will rot out just like that, and starts with this area just ballooning out a little bit before it pops out into that. So once again, wax oil or something like that is your friend. Make sure you put plenty of stuff in there. I plan to use mine a lot, so I should be doing a lot of that in areas like up in here before the panels go on. This is the ledge that the panels bolt or sit onto before they bolt up into. There's like a sort of rubber dum-dum goes in there, like I use on Land Rovers, I think. Interestingly, someone's added some kind of like boat trim, I think, to mine at the bottom. So I don't think I'll be taking that off. Well, I think I will to paint it, but I won't be filling all the holes or welding the holes up, that's for sure. I'm going to close up at the package there. Now, the gearbox on a Thames looks like that. So it's basically a Mark II innards inside. A Mark II Zephyr. You can still get bits and pieces for them, but if you're jumping out a second, it's probably one of two things, which is either the synchro, it's gone on second and third, or it can be the input shaft. People always say, oh, in bushes, is that why it's jumping out a second? No, if it's probably not the bushes, it's probably a gearbox. They do need rebuilding, so if you do find the bits, get hold of them. The engine, it was a Mark II console engine. This is my one. Unseized it, but putting some plus 60s back in, and I'm putting a Mark III head on to make it breathe a little bit better. Not trying to set the welder light, but just to give it a little bit more help, as it were. Obviously, when you're changing heads like that over, you need to remember to have the push rods, because they are different. The Mark III Zephyr engine used high compression push rods. If it's a low compression head, you use Mark II push rods, so they are different. Something I learned. I didn't know they were different, but even I learned something today. I'm putting some Mark III rods in as well, because the Mark III rods were slightly stronger, just to build up into a bit more of a better unit, really. I've got some weird little additions on mine, so where mine has been around the world a little bit, Greece and Israel and stuff, I've got these little brackets, so you can put a set of bunks which are made out of I'm keeping this, by the way. I love this. This is the water washer bottle. Keeping that, it's great. I'm going to put that somewhere safe, actually. Which are these canvas things here? I wouldn't trust those. Well, I don't know, I suppose 50-year-old canvas probably be alright. But yeah, so it's basically the Thames in a nutshell. Back end's quite simple, I suppose. I'm repairing this back valance. You've got a nice straight, well, it's a bowed edge that goes across, but again, you've got 3 panels joining into a knuckle. So if you're going to take that panel off, you've got this one, the one behind it, and the little beam that runs across with those plates that go in the corner behind here. So that would not be a very nice repair to do. I do know a chap who's done it, a very, very talented old boy who does it with oxyacetylene, but he did say he had terrible trouble getting the doors to line up and settle up once he'd done it, and to get the edge where it wanted to be. So I think I shall be chickening out and doing patch repairs. I'm missing the rear footstep. If anyone's got one, I'd love to have one. I've just got this lovely piece of plank of wood there. So yeah, got a few little wooden additions on this, which is not bad. The gutters are okay, most of the doors are okay. It's been reasonably looked after in garage, but certainly if you're buying a panel van or a minibus, definitely check, sorry, fingers over the lens, definitely check this area here, because you can guarantee if someone, even if it is a nice one, it's been used, you want to check it out, because it will eventually just burst out through the rear quarters. So I've got some nice new ones, but I'm going to have to make sure I heavily protect them. That will be a very interesting repair. I was tempted just to T-cut it, but I don't think that'll work. I don't think so.